Alright, so let's start off this video with ALLHC, no? Or AyalaLand Logistics Holding Corp. So as we can see dito, nabuo yung pattern natin, nagkaroon tayo ng inverse head and shoulders. Tapos when we broke out, price came back and tagged tong previous area of lows na to, kung saan nakahanap tayo ng resistance, and now we're rolling a bit to the downside. So habang nandito tayo, more or less, we can assume na we are trading within this range here between 3.46 hanggang mga 3.8. You can push it a bit higher hanggang sa high ng swing na to. But para sa akin kasi parang hindi pa exactly tapos yung leg. So I want to see how it develops further before I adjust my levels, no? But even if you moved it a bit higher, you will recognize na nauuntog pa rin tayo dito sa previous area of consolidation na to, which again, hindi naman nalalayo doon sa mga cluster of lows natin. So for now, I think it's safer to assume na if this is gonna trade ng sideways, we might move anywhere between 3.46 or hanggang 3.8, or perhaps even push a bit lower than that. Baka balikan natin tong area of consolidation na to, or i-fill natin tong gap na to na naiwan before. But if we dip further than tong mga 3.2, 3.10 na area, then highly likely the pattern will be invalidated and babalik tayo dito sa previous range na to. Now, whether or not the entire range will look viable remains to be seen, no? Depende kung ano yung mangyari. Okay? Now, if we can start holding firmly naman above 3.8, then it opens up this wider range above between 3.8 hanggang 4.35. And yes, we recognize na may mga lows dito na pwedeng pag-untugan, but I think na this wider range will be in play basta makapag-hold tayo above 3.8. Okay, lalo na kapag kunwari nag-hold siya firmly, tapos kapag nagpo-pullback, nag-reject, then I think yung kumbaga natural magnet ng price would be to gravitate towards 4.35. Now, syempre, as always, hindi naman po natin pwedeng asahan na laging tick perfect yun, no? So, always assume na you're looking at the potential area rather than an exact level. Okay? Next, tignan naman natin tong MEG, no? Now, since we looked at MEG last week, we'll do a brief recap lang para lang mas malinaw at mas detalyado yung discussion natin, no? Unang-una, nagkaroon tayo ng range area na to, and when we eventually broke down, 'di ba? Bumaba yung price, nakahanap tayo ng support around this area, nag-form tayo ng inverse head and shoulders pattern, we broke to the upside, and then we started moving higher until now. Ang nangyari is nakahanap tayo ng resistance around 2.6, which is again yung area ng previous low here and yung cluster ng low dito. Okay? Now, I'm going to zoom in para lang mas clear, no, at mas maganda yung usapan. We have been trying to hold above tong 2.6. But aside from this one candle here, for the most part, whenever we try to go above it and close above it, nagkakaroon tayo ng rejection. In fact, nagkaroon tayo ng shooting star dito. And today, nagkaroon tayo ng bearish engulfing after last week's attempt to hold above 2.6 na. Now, ano yung mga potential scenarios that we can watch out for dito sa MEG? Una, if we can start holding above 2.6, same as last time, I think it opens up this range up here. And baka maging range tradable to all the way up to 2.89 hanggang 2.91. So again, it's an area of resistance, no? My view on that hasn't changed. However, if we come down, take out this swing low, I think what happens next is at the very least, we come back and tag tong purple zone na to around 2.4. Now, kung hindi mag-hold yung purple zone na yan, let's say price breaks down, test from underneath, mag-hold, roll over, then the next levels of support will be at 2.23, followed by 2.15. By then, I think for the most part, medyo papangit na yung itsura ng chart. What exactly it would look like, hindi ko pa sure. Maaaring when we break down here, this might become some type of overshoot and we start trading sideways lang sa area na to. maaaring we dig even deeper, magkaroon ng pattern failure, and we start seeking for deeper levels of support. A break beneath 2.15 likely finds us back here sa around 2 pesos na area. Okay, but for now, yung mga bulls I think want to see 2.6 hold, and they want to see it hold firmly para mag-open talaga tong wider range na to, and it gives the market a bit more breathing room kasi right now parang it's threatening to push lower pa eh. We don't know what it's going to do, but it's not looking the greatest right now. I'm not saying na hindi na siya tataas or bigla siyang babaksak or anything like that. I'm just saying that we need to be careful para kung sakali man na mangyari ang ayaw natin mangyari, eh handa tayo, tas di tayo mabubulaga. Diba? Speaking of that, I did a video recently on how to build your own trade plan. So if you haven't checked that out, I put a link to that in the description box below. I think it's one of my better teaching videos, so be sure to check that out para lang mas in control kayo, na hindi kayo pangungunahan ng emotions nyo, kasi at the very least, maganda at napagplanuhan nyo ng maigi yung trade na tinitake nyo. Next, tignan naman natin yung first gen or FGEN, no? Now, itong FGEN, again, similar setup with a lot of other names that we've been looking at lately. Nagkaroon tayo ng inverse head and shoulders pattern here, albeit in this particular instance, medyo anemic yung itsura niya ng konti, no? So, it's been falling for quite a while. Again, as we always discuss, usually strong moves like this na medyo inefficient, lalo na to, di ba, nag-gap up, konso sandali, inefficient move na naman, tend to get eaten up sooner rather than later, di ba? So, it more than filled the gap. In fact, it almost filled the gap beneath dito. Alright, now let's zoom in. It's pushing higher, and the next level of resistance is around 20.9. If we can break above 20.9, yung next level of resistance para sa akin ay nasa 22.10 na. Now, right now, what price is doing is it's moving sideways after breaking above yung 18 pesos na resistance level. So, ano yung mga pwede nating i-anticipate na potential scenarios? Bearish muna tayo, no? If price comes back down, takes out tong 18 pesos na area, test it from underneath, mag-hold yan, then roll over, then odds are what might happen is we might range muna dito between 15.5 hanggang mga 18 pesos. Okay? I don't know what that range might look like. It might be very choppy. It might be very easy to trade. It remains to be seen. Now, kung kunwari naman, as we said kanina, mabasag natin tong 21, then the next levels of resistance that we're looking at will be 22.10, followed by 24. Pero for now, no, habang kumbaga neither scenario has played out just yet, I think what might happen is baka mag-range muna tayo dito between 18 pesos hanggang mga 21 pesos. Okay, whether that range holds or whether that range breaks when tested, eh hindi po natin masabi, no? Syempre hanggat kaya gusto naman natin makita lagi na mag-break to the upside, but as we all know, can't always get what we want. Okay? So, for now, I think the best approach dito sa FGEN, assuming wala pa kayong hawak, is to just wait and see what it does next. The last thing we want to do is to enter a trade na hindi maganda yung risk-reward. And where price is right now, parang it's caught between a rock and a hard place. Parang nasa gitna siya nitong level of support and resistance na to. Okay? So, for now, parang mahirap na sabihin na, hindi, dapat papasok na ako dito, nasa magandang lugar siya. For me, there's still the chance na magbalik to dito, i-fill yung gap na naiwan before, and then we can see what it does then. Obviously, pwede rin naman na i-ignore niya lahat yon, mabasag lang tayo to the upside, but regardless of which happens, at least handa tayo, di ba? Alam na natin yung mga scenarios that we need to watch out for dito sa FGEN. Next, let's take a look at Ayala Corp or AC, no? Now, tong AC, nagkaroon tayo ng strong push sinabayan niya yung pag-angat ng index, no? And then naka-form tayo ng resistance dito sa 776. Kung papansinin natin, where price held was once again dito sa baba kung saan tayo naghanap ng demand zone like we discussed last time dun sa index review videos natin. Okay? So, from here, essentially, bumalik lang siya sa range na to. Price came up, formed resistance. Where that resistance formed was obviously this cluster of lows here, here, here. And kung titignan natin, it's also a flip zone, di ba? It acted as both resistance and support, resistance, support, and so on, no? So, hindi nakakagulat na nakahanap tayo na reaction dyan. We push back, tapos ngayon bumalik tayo dito sa level of support na to, which was previous resistance based on this low here. Now, kung mabasag natin altogether tong 730 plus na level, then we might come all the way back dito sa 709, and then we get to see. Pagbalik dito, this is a decent area kasi, 'di ba? It was an area din na inflection point din siya or flip zone, resistance, support, and so on. So kung bumalik tayo dito, do we get to see a reaction? Will price reject from here and start pushing higher once again? That's something to watch out for, no? Pero kung kunwari tuluyang mabasag tong 700 pesos more or less na level, then I think we likely dig deeper. Balikan natin tong 666 na area or even come all the way back down here sa 627. Kasi nga as we discussed, inefficient moves like this tend to get eaten up. Now, kung bumalik tayo all the way hanggang 627, you need to start asking yourself, okay, goodbye pa ba siya? Kasi it ate up the entire move, 'di ba? Parang inundo lang niya lahat ng effort na to. So do you really want to be catching dito sa 627? If your answer is yes, based on whatever system you use, then syempre, you go for it. Pero if your answer is no, kumpara sa inyo, hindi na maganda itsura ng chart, then wag natin ipilit just because price went back to a certain level. Okay? Now, for me, it all remains to be seen depending on how price pulls back. If price falls, similarly dito sa pagtaas na to, meaning kung ano yung itsura niya, ganito kalakas sa sunod-sunod yung green candles, binigyan tayo ng ganon din na kalakas na sunod-sunod na red candles, then baka medyo dehado tayo ng konti, no? Baka it might not be such a good idea to try and catch a falling knife. But kung kunwari maganda naman yung pullback natin, very easy to understand and read yung structure, then we'll reanalyze Ayala Corp then. But for now, I think watch mode muna tayo. See what it does within this range. If it breaks to the upside, then maybe we come back and tag these highs that were left over from before. If it starts falling to the downside, then as I said, tignan natin how it develops before we decide if this is something that we want to get into moving forward. And then finally, let's take a look at ACEN. Now, itong ACEN, as I mentioned before, okay, sumalo ako dito around 7.66 pero maliit lang kasi I wasn't intending to. And just because it ended up working out, it doesn't mean that it was the best trade that I could have taken, no? I still maintain that. I still stand by that na it would have been best kung iniwasan ko na lang to given current market conditions during that time. Okay? Now, all that being said, lumabas na ako dito at 8.9, so we can now talk about ACEN once again. To those who know me, you know na I try to avoid talking about stocks na may hawak ako. I feel like kung may na-hype kahit isang tao lang, para ko na rin siya ninakawan sa bulse. Parang may hawak na akong posisyon sa ako sasabihin sa ibang tao. It just doesn't feel right sa akin. Parang very icky yung feeling. 'Di ba? So, since wala na akong hawak, we can talk about this better. Right now, we are trading within this larger range here between 8 pesos hanggang mga 8.9. But does that mean na if price pulls back, dapat bumili? That remains to be seen, no? I would prefer na kung mag-pull back tayo dito, mag-form tayo ng some type of trap bago tayo pumasok para lang mag-increase ng kahit konti yung probability of the trade possibly working out. But all that remains to be seen kasi you still need to consider yung lagi ko sinasabi na very choppy na tong area na to. Is it an obvious range? Yes. Okay, that's not Kumbaga, that's not up for debate. It is a very obvious range. Can we segment the range further? I would argue din na yes. Etong cluster of highs na to, parang inflection point siya with this cluster of lows. Yes, medyo nadaan na siya along the way, but we can see na the general area respect ng price from both the bottom and the top. Diba? So kung kunwari nag-pull back to dito, magugulat ba tayo kung nauntog siya sa gitna at bumalik? No, kasi alam natin na may mga levels din doon eh. Diba? It's just that the more major levels are at the high end and low end of the range. Okay? Now, ano pa yung mga pwede natin tignan na scenarios dito sa ASEN? If we can actually break above tong 8.9 to 9.10 na area, that opens up the wider range above between 9.10 hanggang 9.8. Yes, I'm aware na may cluster of lows dito na pwede natin paguntugan. However, I don't think it's a major level, and I think the more likely scenario is we trade within this range here. Whether or not short-lived lang yung pag-trade within that range, meaning kung mag-breakout tayo, tumuloy-tuloy lang, or matagalan tayo sa range na yun, syempre hindi po natin alam, no? Hindi naman po natin hawak yung merkado eh. Now, kung kunwari, from here, we break to the downside naman, meaning we break beneath 8 pesos. Number one, odds are price comes back to test tong 7.66 na area, and if that area holds, then we'll reassess kung ano itsura ng range then. But if that area doesn't, then the most likely scenario is we push even lower at mabalikan natin yung support dito at 6.85, and if that breaks, baka all the way pa hanggang 6.39. Okay, pero syempre, again, wag natin sobrang pangunahan yung sarili natin. Let's take it one step at a time. Okay? The other thing that you could potentially look at here is we could be forming some type of head and shoulders pattern, no? So if we zoom in, nakikita nyo parang ganun yung nagpo-form. So again, that makes this area here doubly critical. If that breaks, then not only yung mga support and resistance traders yung makakapansin, pati yung mga pattern traders, mapapansin din nila na, uy, nag-break yung neckline. Kailangan ko na mag-cut or kailangan ko na magbenta, kailangan ko na mag-take profit, whichever the case may be. Alright? So just something to watch out for dito sa ASEN. So guys, dito po nagtatapos yung video natin, no? I hope nakatulong po to sa inyo kahit konti and may natutunan kayo kahit papano. And if so, I would really appreciate it if you give this video a like and consider subscribing to my channel. And as always guys, maraming salamat po sa panonood. I really appreciate it. Good luck and happy trading!